There is a village in rural America where the 21st century stops at the fence line. The families who live there refuse the power grid and the internet, and most of them refuse to be photographed. Those rules keep nearly everything about the place hidden from outsiders. They cannot hide it from the sky. Feed the public scanning data for one of these settlements into an AI, and it flags the ground itself. Under those plain wooden farms sit large, deliberate structures that no machine ever touched. Some of them glow with warmth. Some hold a cold that never changes. Every one of them was put there on purpose. This is what is buried beneath a forbidden Amish village. Start with who these people are, because the popular image is decades out of date. More than 400,000 Amish now live across 32 American states, and the population doubles about every 20 years, which makes them one of the fastest growing communities on the continent. Every church district lives by the Ordnung, an unwritten code that decides which technology gets in. The detail most outsiders get wrong is that the Amish use plenty of energy. Walk through Holmes County, Ohio, and you will find propane refrigerators, battery lamps, compressed air workshop tools, and in some districts, solar panels on barn roofs. The line they hold is the connection itself. Power a family generates and controls keeps the community independent. A wire from the utility company makes the community dependent, so the wire stays out, and cameras are unwelcome for similar reasons. From the road, a visitor sees barns, buggies, and very little else. That refusal creates a genuine puzzle. A community of hundreds of people with no power company, no sewer line, and no electric refrigeration has to get through freezing winters, year after year, without poisoning its own water or starving in February. Ask most outsiders how, and the honest answer is a shrug. The actual answer sits under the farmland, and until open scanning data came along, almost nobody on the outside had ever seen it. The scanning itself requires no trespassing and no permission, which is the loophole that makes the whole investigation possible. For years, government survey agencies have flown aircraft across the country, firing millions of laser pulses per second at the ground, a method called LiDAR, and they publish the resulting elevation maps openly. A laser cannot see through soil. What it can do is read the faint marks that buried structures press into the surface, a dip of a few inches over a collapsed chamber, a low ridge over an old wall. In Ireland, exactly that kind of surface clue led archaeologists to a passage tomb that had stayed hidden for 5,500 years. Thermal imaging adds the second layer. Buried stone and hollow spaces hold heat differently than the packed soil around them, so an infrared camera flown at dawn can sketch the outline of things nobody has ever seen from ground level. In Italy, drone thermal cameras have picked Roman roads and villa foundations out of empty fields. The AI part of the pipeline is pattern recognition at scale. A trained model can sweep thousands of acres of elevation and heat data in an afternoon and flag every anomaly a human analyst would struggle to find by eye. Archaeologists built these methods to find dead cities. They work just as well on a living community that keeps itself off every map, and you can study land that no camera is allowed to approach. Run that analysis over Amish farmland, and the first result is an absence. A utility map of any normal town is dense with buried lines. Around this one, the ground is blank. The scan shows no power cables feeding the houses, and no municipal sewer line leaving the property, none of the underground connections every other settlement in the country depends on. By the logic of modern infrastructure, the village should be a failed state in miniature. The thermal layer says otherwise. The houses read warm, the barns read full and busy, and the community is plainly thriving while connected to nothing. 3 signals in the ground explain how. The strangest signal sits under the gardens. Across the yards, infrared picks up a warm, living pattern arranged in straight-edged beds just below the surface, biology laid out with the regularity of plumbing. It is plumbing, of a kind. The Amish dig long trenches, fill them with layered gravel and sand, and plant them with reeds. Household wastewater enters at one end and moves through the trench by gravity alone. The gravel filters out the solids. Films of bacteria living on every stone digest the waste itself, while the reed roots pull nitrogen and phosphorus from the water and push oxygen down to feed those bacteria. Clean water leaves the last trench and soaks back into the ground, and the cycle restarts with the next wash day. Engineers call this a constructed wetland, and its performance is hard to believe on first reading. A reed bed costs a fraction of a mechanical treatment plant to build, runs for decades, and asks nothing of its owners beyond sunlight and occasional weeding. Water companies in Britain now attach the same design to rural treatment works as a final cleaning stage, because it does the job for far less money than machinery. Versions of it have kept working through winters of minus 40 degrees. There is no pump anywhere in the system, since the entire process runs on the appetite of microbes and the slope of the land. Families. The modern world writes off as 2 centuries behind are treating their sewage with a method that environmental engineering departments now teach as the best available option for small communities. The elevation data around the barns holds the second surprise. The barns are enormous timber structures, some more than a century old, and the LiDAR shows the soil around their foundations staying dry and stable, even where the surrounding low ground floods in heavy storms. Nothing mechanical is keeping that water out, because there is nothing mechanical on the property to do it. The data points to a buried ring of stone-filled channels and packed clay around each foundation, graded so groundwater gets intercepted and carried down slope before it ever reaches the wall. Clay packs into a barrier that water cannot pass. The loose stone beside it offers an easier route, and water always takes the easier route. So the channels become the path of least resistance, and the foundation stays dry. Compare that with the standard modern solution. A new American house defends its basement with an electric sump pump, and the pump fails in the same minute a storm knocks out the power, which is precisely when the water arrives. Insurance companies process the flooded results every spring. The Amish ring drain has no failure mode worth naming. It has sat beneath those barns through generations of storms without once needing attention, and it will probably outlast the buildings above it. The deepest signal in the scan is the one that looks, at first, genuinely wrong. Far below the farmyards, thermal mapping picks up large pockets of cold with clean geometric edges, rectangles and vaulted curves holding the same low temperature in August that they hold in January. On the raw imagery, they resemble sealed chambers, and a viewer with a taste for horror can supply the rest. The mundane explanation beats the scary one. These are root cellars, hand-dug and hand-mortared vaults of stone and brick, sunk to the depth where soil temperature stops responding to the seasons. Across most of the United States, the ground 6 to 8 feet down holds steady at roughly 50 to 55 degrees Fahrenheit all year, regardless of the heat waves or blizzards overhead. That number matters more than it sounds, because spoilage runs on heat. For most produce, the rate of decay roughly doubles with every 18-degree rise in temperature, so a chamber holding steady in the low 50s keeps food edible for months instead of weeks. The Amish version adds a vent system, a low intake drawing in cool air, and a high outlet releasing warmth and moisture, so the chamber regulates itself. Inside, a single-family cellar carries 500 to 1,000 pounds of potatoes, apples, and preserves through an entire winter without a single watt of electricity. The strictest districts go further still and cut lake ice in winter to chill food through the summer, a practice their neighbors abandoned generations ago. Multiply all of that across a settlement, and the cold signatures on the scan stop being mysterious and become an inventory. The village refrigeration bill is zero, and it stays zero through any energy crisis the outside world manages to produce. All three discoveries point in the same direction, and following them is where the scan earns the word disturbing. The unsettling thing under that village is a mirror. Modern civilization runs on the assumption of uninterrupted electricity, and most of the systems protecting an ordinary town fail the moment that assumption breaks. When a long blackout hits a city, the treatment plants stop and raw sewage backs up toward the streets. Refrigeration dies in a million kitchens at once, and the food begins to rot. Sump pumps go silent while the rain keeps falling. Gas stations stop pumping fuel, and card readers stop taking payment, because both run on the same fragile supply. None of this is speculation. Anyone who sat through the Texas freeze of 2021 watched a version of it happen, when water treatment plants lost pressure across the state, and millions of people were told to boil whatever still came out of the tap in the middle of the richest energy state in the country. Now run the same blackout through the village from the scan and try to find one thing that stops. Wastewater keeps flowing downhill through the gravel and the reeds because bacteria have no power cord. The stone drains keep pulling stormwater away from the barns. 6 feet down, the cellars hold their 50 degrees, exactly as buried earth always has. A community that refused the grid as a matter of faith ended up, almost by accident, owning the most blackout-proof infrastructure in the country. The result is an engineering audit that the Plain Village passes and the modern world fails. One last detail closes the loop. The reed bed under those gardens has a formal scientific pedigree. People have used natural wetlands to clean their waste for about as long as cities have produced it. And the first deliberately engineered treatment wetland was built in the United States back in 1901. In the 1950s, a researcher named Kathy Seidel at the Max Planck Institute in Germany showed that reeds and their root microbes could purify polluted water, and her work founded the modern field of constructed wetlands. Today, more than 1,500 of these systems operate in Britain alone, and engineering firms market them as advanced green infrastructure. The Amish never read her papers. They were already building the things, handing the designs from father to son, while the rest of the world electrified, forgot, and then spent decades rediscovering what it had thrown away. None of this knowledge is locked away either. Constructed wetlands, passive drainage, and earth-cooled storage are all documented in university extension guides anyone can download tonight, which makes the real finding of the scan uncomfortable in a useful way. A society is only as durable as the systems it runs on, and ours is all switch off together. The Amish kept doing the obvious things carefully for 300 years, while everyone else bet the house on the wire. The next time your street goes dark and your phone starts counting down its battery, remember the cold rectangles under that quiet farmland? Somewhere out there, dinner is keeping at 50 degrees, and nobody in the house has noticed that anything happened. If you want more stories like this one, click the video that shows on your screen right now.